Hi, this is Chris Rabb, author of Invisible Capital, How Unseen Forces Shape Entrepreneurial Opportunities. And I'm here at the National Conference for Media Reform in sunny Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm with Julianna Forlano.
Yes.
And you're with Ironic News Report.
Yes.
And why are you so damn funny?
Well, I can't help it.
Well, that's great, because I've been wondering why progressives in particular don't seem to appreciate humor. Are you a self-described progressive? And tell me about that assumption I'm making.
Yeah, you know, I am a self-described progressive. The segment is a satirical news segment, and it's specific for progressives. I don't think that progressives don't have a sense of humor. I just think there's so much to be angry about. In fact, the minute you actually give them something about which they care and you make a joke about it, especially in a satirical way that's really sort of active and has some substance and meat to it and isn't just about like, you know, men and women are different, et cetera, then they really do have a good sense of humor. They're just, I mean, if you're listening to Democracy Now!, you're online, you're reading all these terrible tragedies, you need something to laugh at. And I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of progressive, creating good opportunity for that, including the Ironic News Report.
So why do you think progressives hate America?
Well, they hate America because it's filled with... No, I'm not even going there. Forget it.
No, but seriously, well, not really seriously.
Yeah, but why do people say that progressives hate America?
Yeah, and how do you use that for your work? Because I think it's really funny.
Honestly, what I do in terms of the work is I kind of skew it towards the smart people. It's not necessarily just progressive, because if you're intelligent and you're aware of what's going on in the world, which is kind of a problem in the first place, given our current media climate, actually being aware of what's going on in the world. And then, like, you see all these disjointed things that are happening, how can you not laugh at them? Right. It's, like, ridiculous.
So, are there... Enough about me. What do you think about me? No, that's really not the issue. What I would like to talk to you about, though, is what things are off limits, you know, politically or what have you. Just...
Well, I don't, personally, our segment that we do is totally independent. We have no corporate oversight or anything, so we can basically talk about anything. Now, what I consider off limits, I don't do anything that's specifically misogynistic. You see
just generally misogynistic.
Not generally or specifically misogynistic.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right.
I mean, I also, we're crossing worlds with the entertainment industry and progressive political causes, right? So if you look in the entertainment industry, a lot of times what you'll see is a lot of misogyny coming down in the comedy. And the women in the audience will be like, ha, 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 yes, okay, we're a pain in the neck, blah, blah, blah. And the men, okay, but you can be funny without having to resort to that kind of thing.
Why? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm just, don't mind me. So where are you based? I know you're based on the Electronic Internet. You're in Brooklyn. So like the heart of comedy,
That's
really.
That's correct. New York City, the heart of comedy.
And do you have a Brooklyn sensibility about your products?
I think I do.
Right. I like that, okay. And your audience, how would you describe your audience? I know they're very smart. Angry and smart, right? So they're
smart,
folks with double PhDs
angry.
and
well, I don't know. That might be too smart. I don't know. Double PhDs who can appreciate, you know, some occasional lurid humor.
Okay, so about 17 people.
Right.
All right,
right.
that's fine.
Small,
I don't judge
very small,
to your
but
face.
Powerful
Right.
Group. No, I think the audience is really people who are thinking, people who are out there, aware of what's going on. I mean, they're not going to get the references. Basically, you talk to any of the comics on the satire panel this afternoon, they will tell you that when they go out and they perform in normal clubs, mainstream clubs, that what they're referring to, Michelle Bachmann, whatever, the people don't even know what they're talking about. Right. And so it's like you're performing and crickets are happening, et cetera, et cetera. So the audience of progressives aren't necessarily going to be the people who come out and spend, you know, a 2-drink minimum and are at the comedy club, but they also need comedy in order to stay sane. I think comedy keeps us sane, and I also think that it creates a community. If you were in the big presentation yesterday, that last Sarah Jones, she was hilarious, and all of a sudden you feel sort of a togetherness, and I think that's what most progressives are going for anyway. Inclusion, and the arts, and comedy is considered, in my opinion, an art, really create that kind of inclusion and group experience that we're all kind of looking for.
And
too much?
Just a little bit. No. You're fine. No, I just want to know, like, who inspires you?
Who inspires me in terms of?
I mean, beyond me. Like,
well,
who are the
beyond you.
who are the giants? Yeah.
Who are the giants? Well, of course, there's George Carlin. I mean, if you he was such an artist.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I'm also inspired by Judy Gold, who I don't know if you know who.
Oh yeah.
She's fantastic, and she doesn't do any of that stuff that makes you feel kind of dirty, like, oh, I laughed at that, but now I feel kind of gross. I sold myself out for laughing at it.
Right, yeah.
She's just plain old hilarious,
right.
and she's a powerful woman in the entertainment industry, and I'm excited about working with her. I've worked with her before.
Okay, she's kind of like the female Don Rickles. I get that. That's
No,
good.
she's
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm kidding, but thank you so much.
Good, great.
It was great hanging out with you.
It was great hanging
and
out with you, too.
welcome to Boston.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
You're going to airbrush all of this, right? Yeah. Okay. Hi, this is Chris Rabb, author of Invisible Capital, How Unseen Forces Shape Entrepreneurial Opportunity. I'm here today in Boston, Massachusetts at the National Conference for Media Reform, and I'm with Jason Barnett of theuptake.org. Welcome.
Thanks, Chris.
So, why are you here? I'm like, not right here in this space right here, but at this conference. Why?
Well, you know, everyone knows the media has been going through a lot of turmoil in the last few years, and The Uptake is a new media organization. We've been around for about 3 years now. We are what we call a citizen-fueled news organization, so we train and recruit citizen journalists to get active in the news themselves. And that's part of the reinvention of the media, at least in the recent times, and it's one way to actually engage real stories. The large media, the newspapers, have all been cutting back, or they're just not covering stories that are happening on the streets around the country.
Well, what kind of stories?
The big example I can give now is what's been happening in Madison, Wisconsin, with the labor protests that have been going on for the last month. We've been on the ground there with live streaming video and doing video reports for the last month. And we'd like to continue. It is expensive to do that kind of coverage, so we can't do all that we would like to do right now because we're having to pull back some. But the stories there this is the most important labor story that's happened in the United States for 100 years. The rights that are under risk right now, people literally died in the streets for in like 1912 to 1918. And no, the major media is not covering this, you know, in any significant way. They may have a few sound bites here, do an article once or twice about it, but this is an ongoing, on-the-ground, personal story about people's livelihoods, and it's not being covered in a way. And so the conference like this is a platform to actually talk about why is this not happening? Why aren't people really covering this?
So I have two unrelated questions. One is, you said new media.
Yeah.
What does new media mean to you? And what's the difference between new media and social media, for instance?
Honestly, I don't even like the term new media anymore because...
Okay, we'll strike that. No new media. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
New media term was like hot 3 years ago, right? And it's now all media. Media is social. It's with the web. You can share anything. You can like say I like this, I don't like that, and so social media, new media, is basically a way of it's distribution, right? And so we produce the news. We go out and collect the data. We process the data. We contextualize the data. We tell these stories. And the stories then are shared through Facebook and Twitter and through our communities, and that is what social media is all about. Being able to actually find the stories you're interested in, and then you saying, "Hey, this is a really great Jon Stewart clip" to your community.
Right, but I don't have a journalism degree, so why should I be able to do that?
Because you are able to do that.
So it sounds implicit in this that you believe that part of our kind of citizenship in society, perhaps as a global citizen, is connected to our democracy through how we process media?
And honestly, it always has been. And if you go back to the founding of this nation, the freedom of the press was established for the pamphleteers. And these were people that were running around the streets, with printing presses, and they're writing. They're sometimes very incendiary publications that were like really crazily opinionated, even compared to modern standards.
They sound like bloggers to me.
They're basically paper bloggers, yeah. And so the rights that we now cherish were based upon these people that were out doing very similar things, sharing those things that they printed to their community. They hand delivered them, and then if one of their friends liked it, they probably hand it on. It's
social media.
It's social media, you know. And now we have this technology that you are able to, as an individual, are able to reach thousands of people through these tools. And so the advantage that to media organizations is that we work with you and we work with other citizens and other people in communities to share stories that are of interest to them. So we train them to tell people to tell the stories they're interested in telling. We put that through our system and it gets shared out through our channels and then through our community's channels. And so it's a mass distribution rather than a top-down approach to where you say, this is what I think is important and you are all going to watch it.
Okay, so the downside of that analysis of what essentially sounds like corporate media is that they miss a lot of nuanced, complex stories that people really care about, right? So I want to ask you, what are the most important takeaways and stories related to, let's say, the workers in Wisconsin, Ohio, et cetera, that because of the nature of corporate media are not being covered well by them?
Well, I think just the story in Wisconsin and it in general is a blanket statement of why, you know, that the mainstream media isn't covering the story at all. They're corporate interests. I mean, you know, Comcast owns MSNBC. Comcast is not very labor friendly. You know, if you can actually write those correlations in a line, I don't know if, you know, they might all say they have their journalistic integrity and stuff, but you have to question it. And why isn't MSNBC on the streets in Madison every day telling the most important labor story that's happening? They're not there. You know, Rachel Maddow talks about it, and a couple other of the programs talk about it, but they're not really there, and they're not reporting on it. Fox News flies in to try to show how bad and angry all the labor people are, but you know, they actually are there occasionally. But we're the only ones that have really been on the ground with cameras, live cameras, for day on for months. And it's a really, really important story to tell. And it's not only, Wisconsin is an example of communities that are coming together around issues, and these stories are happening in all over the country and all over the world. Prime example of how citizens have and the technology have engaged people are the revolutions that are happening in the Middle East. All the revolutions stem from one video that was produced by a cell phone camera of a guy lighting himself on fire in protest. And that one video sparked the entire revolution that's happening in the Middle East right now. That's social media. That is an individual telling a story of something that happened right in front of them that was dramatic and horrible. And 10 years ago, that story may have been written about in one of the local papers that we may have been found out about through the New York Times like a month after that, and there's no way the revolution would have been sparked. Right? So the immediacy, the shareability of social media and the new technology coming about and media organizations like ours, like the Uptake, actually using these things in our distribution platform, intentionally working with citizens to engage stories and to tell stories and sharing those things is the way to actually tell the modern story.
So this really sounds like a form of social entrepreneurship is what you're doing, because you're not a subsidiary of Halliburton.
No.
Because I think you left them a while ago. No, but you're a nonprofit, right? So, and yet there is money involved because it takes money to keep this afloat. So, how do you think? I guess what I'm saying is, do you have a sense of how strong this model is in terms of how it impacts media?
Yeah, no, prime example. The Uptake in 2008 and 2009 live streamed the Al Franken Norm Coleman recount and trial. And so this was the most important election that was not solved right away. It was the 60th vote in the Senate. Not that they did much with it, but this was the big story. We live streamed about 9 months of coverage every day. What was happening. We put a blanket of transparency over the entire process, so much that whoever would have won, everyone understood that this was a fair and accurate recount and process. And these recounts and processes are very complicated, and there's a whole bunch of ballots, and the numbers involved are crazy to process, and contextualizing this is difficult. But by putting live cameras on these things and sharing it out and having people engage with us, you know, on the ground, helping us hold cameras, helping us you know, tweet, and helping us engage with our Facebook communities, all really, really added a legitimacy on this process that no matter who had won, our system works. Our system is the base of our our democracy.
And that system, ideally, supports organizations like yours. It should, and our democracy overall.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and going into Wisconsin, they're having a recount now, and we would love to go in to cover it. But what we did in the Franken recount cost a lot of money, and we can't go in there right now and take on Wisconsin without significant support.
Well, thanks for sharing your stories and continued success.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah.